Did you know that according to a version of the myth, Narcissus melted away from the sheer agony caused by the unreciprocated love of his own reflection? And you'd think someone that egocentric would deserve it, but Narcissus was just enjoying life, avoiding his reflection because he knew he was too fire. He was actually punished by the goddess of revenge because he told a nymph who had fallen in love with him to leave him alone. That's got nothing to do with the review really, I just thought it was sad. Anyway, I'm back. That's gotta be my favorite intro yet, so if this gets struck by YouTube, I'm gonna lose it. However, if you're watching this down the line and you've just heard nothing but silence for the previous few seconds, just imagine an epic booming orchestra announcing the beginning of this review. First things first, my name is Nebutron. It has been a while since I dropped a video, I do apologize for that, but there will be uploads more regularly from now on. If it's your first time here, I make content on film, TV and video games, so if that sounds like something you're into, consider subscribing, it would really help me out. Okay, if you haven't guessed, today I'm talking about Loki, and I liked Loki. In fact, of all the new Marvel shows, Loki has been my favourite. Now here is where I point out that you can expect extensive spoilers after this point. Mostly about Loki, sure, but also bits of Marvel in general. This is coming out pretty soon after the finale, so it's possible that you have not seen the final episode yet. If that's the case, I urge you to watch that first or forever hold your peace. Is that cool? Okay, so if you're a fan of the movies, you'll know that Loki from the main timeline dies at the hands of Thanos, but during the course of that movie, the Avengers go back in time to fix everything, and a younger Loki from the first Avengers movie manages to grab the Tesseract, which is of course an Infinity Stone, and escape. Loki ends up in the middle of nowhere and he's immediately picked up by the TVA, or the Time Variance Authority, who are responsible for keeping the chaos of limitless timelines in check. They arrest Loki, who has obviously strayed from the destiny that was intended for him, refer to him as a variant in a really filthy word kind of way, and fast track him to trial, where he's saved by Mobius, played by the excellent Owen Wilson, a TVA agent who feels he can use Loki to help him track down a rogue variant who is causing serious problems for the TVA. Loki, being Loki, agrees to assist if it will stave off his imminent doom, and we learn that the rogue variant is in fact another Loki. Thus begins the adventure, and I have to say it's a pretty solid one. Tom Hiddleston is impressive, of course. We've seen him in multiple films already, and Loki has developed as a character throughout those films, going from villain to more of an anti-hero and eventually fighting for the good guys, albeit ending up dead in the process. And that's been interesting to watch. The show though stars a younger Loki, and it manages to develop him in, I think, a much more interesting way. It essentially asks, who is Loki? What makes a Loki? And it asks these questions amidst the backdrop of the philosophical wranglings of determinism and free will. So, what does it mean to be a Loki? Are they destined to lose? Is it fated? Is it inevitable? Early in the season, Mobius wants to get under the skin of Loki to help him understand what makes a Loki tick. And he wants to know if Loki understands who he is. Does he enjoy hurting people? Why does he betray those who love him? These aren't always questions you can ask of a typical villain. Early on in the show, Loki explains that he doesn't enjoy hurting people, but that he's had to, and it's to compensate for his own insecurities and weakness in order to inspire fear in others. It's a seemingly genuine moment of honesty, but Loki is always multiple steps ahead, keeping his options open, and it feels that at any moment he can cash in his chips and make a power play. It's a testament to the strength of the show that even by the final episode, where Loki is desperately pleading with Sylvie over what to do about Kang, you're not quite sure whether they trust each other. On the face of things, Loki developing feelings for the female version of himself seems typical and maybe a little weird. but it does allow for genuine character development. The common element all the Marvel shows share, whether you like them or not, is that they really allow for the central characters to have transformative experiences. Wanda has to process her grief and come out on the other side a better version of who she was. Sam has to deal with the weight of taking the mantle of Captain America and the contradiction of what that may mean as a black man. Is the idea of Loki falling in love with himself almost comically narcissistic? Absolutely. But his connection with Sylvie is genuine, and he learns more about himself through that connection in the same way anyone learns more about themselves through a connection they share with someone they care about. The show also allows the audience to see Loki in a way they've never seen him before. A definitive element of the Loki character is his insecurity, which is heightened by his jealousy of Thor. He often feels he's second fiddle to the muscled, golden-haired god of thunder, the archetypal hero in most regards. In the show though, Loki really is the hero. We see his cunning, his intelligence, and his capacity to grow and to care, and it makes for an enjoyable viewing experience. Tom Hiddleston is obviously brilliant, this we already know, but in Loki, he really approaches the role in a refreshingly delicate manner. By the finale, I really was all in with the emotional back and forth between Loki and Sylvie. And let's talk about Sylvie. Her development through the season is directly tied to Loki's because at their core, they're the same. So when Loki learns more about his potential as a person, so does Sylvie. But her tumultuous background, surviving for years via multiple end-of-world events and learning to be self-sufficient, means that she's a totally different character. And this allows for the union between Sylvie and Loki to remain on pretty shaky ground right up to the finale, even though they clearly feel for each other. Sophia Di Martino does an excellent job with Sylvie. A big part of what makes the finale so effective, on top of the Kang reveal, is that Sylvie's ultimate decision to kill He Who Remains and disregard Loki is generally difficult to watch, but you understand it because Sylvie as a character is defined by her mission and she can't live with herself if she doesn't execute it. And I do want to point out that final scene with Loki and Sylvie too, because it's one of my favorites and it's a standout scene. It's a scene in which all their tension and mistrust and questions about who they are to themselves and who they are to each other is finally released, and the power of that scene almost acts as a period on the success of the writing. And I say that because Sylvie and Loki is a tough sell, and if it doesn't work, if you don't believe in them, the whole season falls on its face. But Marvel just about managed to pull it off. I really like Owen Wilson. I don't know why exactly. I think it's his natural manner of speaking and how he's so good at conveying a kind of easygoing sincerity. He's great to watch here, and I would go as far as to say this is one of his best ever roles. Now, Owen Wilson is known for his comedy, of course, but I'd love to see him in more drama-focused roles, or at least roles that allow him to play to his strengths the way the character Mobius does. His slow-burning friendship with Loki is brilliant. There's an effortless chemistry there, as is his relationship with Ravonna, which I grew quite attached to throughout the season despite its non-existent foundations.
Okay. I feel like I'm always looking up to you. I like it. It's appropriate.
Mobius is ultimately a tragic character and a pawn in the truest sense, but what does he do when he finds out the TVA is an elaborate lie? He fights with the Lokis to take it down. He's ultimately a good guy, and it's why he's so likable.
I knew I was your favorite analyst. Was that so hard to admit?
The strength of the casting and the quality of the acting and writing is such a huge reason why Loki feels so polished. I enjoyed the Falcon and Winter Soldier story for the most part, but while I think Erin Kellyman is a fantastic actress, her role as the main antagonist Carly didn't seem to fit, and it took some of the edge away from the show as a whole. In Loki, however, there isn't any of that at all. Gugu Mbatha Raw and Wunmi Mosaku as Ravonna and Hunter B-15 respectively are excellent just because they are so talented and they seem to fit their roles perfectly. Hunter B-15 is a devoted no-nonsense member of the TVA, but when she learns that she had a previous life and she's actually a variant just like the people she mercilessly hunts down, she has a crisis of faith and switches sides. There's a tenderness in which she expresses to Sylvie that she looked happy in her previous life. Wunmi masterfully pulls off both sides of Hunter B-15's character. Ravonna is the typical middle woman towing the line between the truth and the lie. She's mysterious, she's secretive, but while her relationship with Mobius is ultimately a sham, there are clearly sincere moments in their exchanges, moments that they both acknowledge even when the truth is out. I feel Gugu portrays Ravonna excellently and will be sure to see more of Ravonna Renslayer in season 2. The fact that the TVA characters are variants themselves naturally hinders the show's ability to effectively develop them, but they're written well enough that you get a good sense of who they are and were. I think Loki is excellent. It's well written and gorgeous to look at. The plot is Kafkaesque, exploring themes of encountering nonsensical and endless bureaucracy. The season plays out like a maze where no source of information is completely reliable, and that could easily be frustrating, that mystery, but it's contrasted by a protagonist, namely Loki, who is emboldened in discovering his own sense of identity through his counterpart Sylvie. The plot and Loki's own character arc are complementary, they balance out, and that elevates the viewing experience. The TVA is a wonderful feast for the eyes, a clash of retro-futurist and mid-century modern influences. But it's also mostly dark and dingy. The environment is almost a character in itself, and director Kate Herron's low-angle shots seem to emphasize the vulnerability of everyone in the TVA as they carry out their endless tasks with no knowledge that they're also the variants they hunt. The production design seamlessly feeds into the special effects, which are brilliant, with classic Loki's standoff with Alioth being a standout scene.
Look how they massacred my boy.
And Natalie Holt's score ties it all up. I have to say the music in Loki is amazing and the score is simply one of Marvel's best. However, there are things that could have been done differently. The show's negatives are perhaps down to the way the show was produced. Loki needed more than 6 episodes, truth be told. It really does skirt the line of overreaching, and while I feel it pulls it off, it's really close. For example, Loki and Sylvie's connection is vital for the show to succeed, but episode 3 is left to do all the heavy lifting in that regard. Over the course of just one episode, Loki and Sylvie forge this connection that is perhaps cooked a little too quickly to sell to the audience, and while it just about worked for me, I would understand if it didn't for others. And if it doesn't work for you, then maybe episode 6 becomes exposition-laden white noise with a frustrating cliffhanger at the end, instead of one of the strongest episodes due to the emotional payoff between Loki and Sylvie. The Kang/Immortus reveal is awesome, and Kang being portrayed by Jonathan Majors opens up wild implications for the MCU, but it's hard to sell that to someone who isn't even buying into Loki and Sylvie. These are really fine margins. Comparatively, when Loki hugs Mobius at the end of episode 5 and refers to him as a friend, that feels more organic, it feels earned. Still, the writing for me is strong enough that I personally was sold on Sylvie and Loki, and now that season 2 is confirmed, I'm looking forward to seeing more of what is now a ridiculously stacked cast. So that's my review. I thoroughly enjoyed Loki season 1. It's definitely my favourite of the new Marvel shows and carried a feeling of epicness that the other shows lacked. Though that isn't a slight against those shows because I don't think that's what they were going for, at least not all of the time. But that cinematic epicness is definitely fully on display here. Loki is well written, it's well acted, and it's definitely well scored. I'm not sure that sentence made sense, but you get what I mean. I give Loki season 1 a 4.5 out of 5. If you made it to the end, thank you. I appreciate your time, and if you enjoyed the review, let me know by liking the video, and if you like this video, you might like some of my other reviews, so check them out too. What are your thoughts on Loki? Did I miss anything you liked about the show? Did I miss anything you didn't like? Let me know in the comments below, let's talk about it. Now, you don't have to subscribe, but it would be nice if you do. You've been listening to Nebutron. Until next time, I'm out.